Okay, question 2 of part 2 of our Python series. This one here is looking very, very similar to our curtain program. Instead of making curtains, we have a plumber. He goes around fixing some pipes. Excellent. And he charges $1.50 per kilometer traveled. He charges $60 an hour. Labour, I dare say that this might be a bit old. If you can find me a plumber that only charges that, I will definitely book him if I ever need a plumber. Or her. Write a program that allows him, no, it's a him, to store the distance travelled, the number of hours he works, the cost of the parts. Of course, don't forget up top, he adds that extra cost onto the cost of the parts that he already has. And it outputs the cost of the travel, the cost of the labour, and the total cost of the bill. You don't need to output the cost of the parts, it seems. The output should have a descriptive text to explain the amount shown, same as last time. We're not just going to output meaningless numbers. We're going to output it with some text so that the user of this knows what's going on. Always imagine the user isn't you. Right, back to Rebel. Oh, hello, curtain program. Bye-bye, curtain program. Do that, little backspace here to clear the console. Cool, console is cleared. Right. Let's make a couple of variables. Let's get, how far have you traveled? So let's go, let's call dist is equal to an integer input. Gosh, you should be getting used to that little thing by now. An integer input, how far have you traveled? And say hours is equal to, I always find it the hardest part, coming up with names for your variables. They should be simple and short so that you don't have to type out lots when you type them down, but also if you make them too simple, like if I just call this H, you can sometimes get really lost on, what is H? I've forgotten. What does that mean? And now it's in this funny equation. So always make them descriptive as well. Hours is fine here. And this is also an integer input. Integer input, how many hours have you worked? And also, let's say parts is equal to an integer input. What is the cost of the parts? Cool, 1, 2, 3, great. We need some output. We can just put these straight into the code. It is fine. Cost of the travel, what is the cost? He charges $1.50 per kilometers traveled. Again, we're going to do the calculation in variables, print those variables out below. That's so that our print statements don't get too convoluted. Maybe you might think that it's simple enough just to go print and then do the calculation within that print function, but I'm not. We're sticking to storing that information in a variable, printing that variable out afterwards. Cost travel is equal to dist times 150, and cost labor is equal to hours times 60, and total cost, I'm just going to call it total, is equal to parts plus cost travel plus, I'll give myself a little bit more room here, cost, labor. Cool. Now we can print these out. Cost of travel, and I'm sure you're already ahead of me here. Cost of travel, cost of labor, and total cost. Oh, I've just called it total. That looks good. Anything glaringly obvious wrong with that? No. How far have you traveled? I traveled 30 kilometers. How many hours have you worked? He worked for 2 hours. What is the cost of the parts? It was 120 bucks. Cost of travel was $45. Cost of labor was $120. All of that looks fairly sensible, isn't it? The total cost is $285. Right. Okay, a couple of things I want to talk about with this program. We could finish this here, and in fact we will finish this here, but I do want to show you some things just to have in the back of your mind, things that can go wrong with this. So at the moment, because we've done an integer input on each of these, int input, if I put anything else in here, it's all just going to break. It's all just going to go absolutely sideways. Be warned. Be warned. This requires your user to know to not break the program. So I would never release this program out into the wild because you need some way to stop the user from breaking it like this. And we will get to that. What was the other thing I was going to say as well? It's also still a little bit unclear. How far have you traveled? Oh, I don't know. 14? What does that mean? Like 14 what? So I might actually put, how far have you traveled in kilometers? And that just makes it a little bit tidier, a little bit nicer. Great. Question 2 done.